Hello. This one's such an important topic that I made some notes, so if you see me look down, that's what I'm doing. And I'm going to try and be brief. Haha. I'm not good at being brief, but I'll try. So I was asked to just comment on monogamy and sexuality, and it's something that came up in it came up in the last 24 hours. I was asked to look at a film called 365 Days on Netflix, so I was having a bit of a laugh about like what makes that film sexy and what women want. And then I did it happened to be all female coaching group, and we got into at the end the session had finished and we had a bit of a back and forth about what women are looking for in a relationship, and there was a bit of relief that I managed to provide. Everything's Freudian now. We'll just go with it. We'll just ignore it. Otherwise, we'll never get through this. As far as my perspective on that, so there's a couple of points here. The first point is the argument against monogamy is that it's not natural. It seems to be a pretty strong case that it's not natural. That men and women, because they're of different, as mammals, when mammals have a significantly different weight in between them, significantly different size, in nature they are polyamorous. They have multiple partners throughout their lifetime. And men and women, human males and females, are significantly different in weight, so therefore they're naturally polyamorous. So therefore we shouldn't try to do monogamy. And I'm like, okay, do you know that rape is natural? Genocide is natural. Do you know that and torture is natural? And people go, no, it isn't. Only human perverts do that. No, my vegan friends, that is not true. Animals rape. Animals, they can't do genocide because they haven't got the machinations for it, but they'll definitely try to wipe out the bloodline of a competing male or a competing tribe. Watch the documentary The Monkey Warriors of Jodhpur if you want some really, it's a great documentary, and there's some really graphic examples of that, where the males who invade the tribe kill all the other males and then they kill the bloodline. So that's a genocide. It's the side is murder and geno is for gene. So it happens. So torture. Dolphins torture their prey. Cats torture their prey. Why? Because it's pleasurable. It's a fun thing. So we don't do these things, right? When I get angry with somebody in driving, if I get out of my car and bash their head in, you can say, here is the human adult male. He's doing what is natural to him. Yeah, and then I go to jail for the rest of my natural life. So the idea that because something is natural, it's what we should be doing is absurd. There's tons of things that we're evolved to do that we don't do. The question I think people should be asking, which is what all civilization has asked this, is what is best to do? What's best for you to do? By the way, I'm not saying don't be polyamorous. I'm like, be whatever you want. I'm not... I don't have collective solutions for people. I'm absolutely against any sort of state-mandated set of behavioral rules based on people's personal life. As long as you're not harming anybody, I'd say just go for it if you like it. So there's an argument against monogamy that I just want to put to one side, which is that it's not natural. Well, so what? So what are humans doing nowadays that's massively natural anyway? The idea that polyamory is better is another point that's raised. Well, I'm rarely personal in these videos, but allow me to be personal for a second. I could be polyamorous, and I'm not. So you could say to me, well, why? Now, I can give you an argument for why polyamory is a good thing, but at the end of the day, if we take the Adlerian perspective, even if I think it's a good thing, I ultimately don't do it. So because I don't do it, that's stronger than if I say, yeah, polyamory is a fucking great idea. go out and have loads of sexual partners. I don't do it. And I could. There would be no consequence. Literally none. I have no wife, no partner, no children. I couldn't name for you a single person that would care. There's nobody in my life. If I was like, I had sex with 15 people this week, I think some of the people in my life would be like, that's funny, but nobody would care. I don't do it. Because why? And I think on some level, I kind of have a suspicion that for some of us, but perhaps not all of us, it would be emotionally dysregulating. I think I would find it a little bit dysregulating. I think I would find it destabilizing to me. I'm not saying everybody shouldn't do it because it's emotionally dysregulating, but for me, I would find it, I would say, again, a little bit personal. I love women. I love women and I love sex. Who doesn't love sex? It's a stupid statement. It's like saying I really like the taste of chocolate cake. I mean, everybody fucking does. But I don't do the things that I do just simply for pleasure, because in my life I've not found that there's a great long-term gain. There's good short-term gain, but long-term it tends not to be fantastic. Again, I'm not saying don't do it whatever you like. I just want to put aside the idea that monogamy is no good because it's not natural. So we dealt with that. Polyamory is better. And I would say, I don't know. Maybe for certain individuals, there is a genetic inclination or like a personality trait inclination that just makes that better for them. The next thing I wanted to talk about is so we've established monogamy. Seems like, as far as I'm concerned, it's the only really reasonable option long term. It's the only really reasonable option long term. I think, and the data backs this. You'll live longer. You'll be happier. If you're in some kind of a stable relationship, or okay, let's not go there. So how can you make that work? Well, monogamy right now, people often say it doesn't work because look at the statistics, look at the divorce rate. And I'd say that's nothing to do. Don't blame monogamy for that. That's got nothing to do with whether monogamy works or not. That's where we are up to culturally. So in line with the recent videos I've released on this channel, which I'm just doing whenever I feel like it, basically, there's this sort of, I'm looking at this personally in my own life, trying to draw the distinction between where psychology usefully ends and where we have to move into philosophy, where the problem lies in the individual and where we have to say, you know what, it's really not useful to talk as though this individual has a problem and then pathologize their drives. We have to say, this is not the individual, this is now a cultural issue. So why is monogamy not working right now? My suspicion is that with late stage capitalism, and if you look around the world, it clearly is late stage. Things ain't going so well. The ideas have run out. We probably are not going to be able to kick the can down the road for another decade in this way. There probably is going to be a major societal upheaval. One of the good elements of this is I suspect we're looking at a looming sexual revolution. And I suspect we're looking at a revolution in consciousness as well, because a lot of people are very, very, very sick of the way we have been living. It benefits a tiny minority of people. It really, I mean, it's a world, I've said this before, you'll have heard me say it before, it's a world that is created, obviously, I don't know who could doubt this, by the apex predators of the group, which are the narcissists and the psychopaths. So you have 100 people, one of them is extremely aggressive and predatory. They're spearheading the way the movement of the rest of the tribe goes. They're the ones who become the leaders, and they're the ones who shape the world. And if you look around at the world and its assumptions and its coordinates, they're narcissistic and psychopathic assumptions and coordinates. Why is that a problem? Well, over a long enough timeline, so if you imagine it's the architecture of the world that we're living in, and then we all live, say if you play a game and the game has certain rules and you keep playing that game, you start to see everything through the rules of the game. If I teach you to box, and we do a lot of like bob and weave drills, so I'm getting you good at evading, I'm getting you fucking bobbing and weaving, you're getting your cardio on, you're loving that, you're having a great time. If you turn to somebody and they go, look over there, the chances are high that because you've been playing that game, your body, your brain will react as though that was a punch from boxing. So the game that you're playing regularly becomes how you see the world. Marshall McLuhan said the medium is the message. So because we're watching television and consuming television, we're processing reality as though it were a TV show. We're processing narratives about reality as though it were a TV show or a film. And he said before that it was books. So we would think in terms of a narrative that had a beginning, a middle, and an end. I think he was right. Where we've come to, because we're living inside of coordinates that are narcissistic and psychopathic, they are materialistic and power-based. So even if it's not our natural inclination, we're forced into a highly materialistic, and I do mean clothes, watches, cars, houses, and all of that, but also seeing other people as material. It's a world of the flesh, not a world of the spirit. And it's the naughty trick it plays is it's always been this way and there's no other options. This is just reality. This is why I get bothered by attempts to erase history. Because when we erase history, even if it's ugly history, even if it's awful history, we shouldn't erase things that are ugly. That's not how therapy works. And you say, but we're not talking about therapy, we're talking about the world. And I'm like, well, as above, so below. As with the micro, so with the macro. Where there's trauma, we need to tell the truth, and then we all need to witness the truth of the hideous thing that happened. You know, you look at countries like Bosnia, which still lives in a fractured PTSD and CPTSD. The state of Bosnia doesn't function because it's still in PTSD and CPTSD, and there's never been a true witnessing. There's never been a true satiating to the Bosnian people accounting of what has happened there. So they kind of just, it hobbles along. And it's a tragedy to go there and see it because the people are smart. They're smart. They're resourceful. It's a beautiful country. It has, you know, a lot going for it, but it struggles to escape this wounded and traumatized position. So we need to not be erasing history. We need to not be not telling. In fact, if anything, we need more history, not less. We need more. We need less stories. We need more of our history. How did religion develop? What the fuck did the Vatican do? They're the winners. So we think like, yeah, the Catholic Church has always been there. It's gone on unopposed. Da, da, da. It's crazy to think that. It's not the truth. We're learning little chunks of history that are spun in a certain way, and it hurts us. So how does this play into monogamy? People who are in a highly where the consent is highly manufactured, to use Chomsky's phrase. Our consent is not real consent. Our consent is entirely manufactured. To use Zizek, we have the freedom, but the freedom to do what? We have the fake choice. Who said this? Baudrillard, how do you say his name? This fake choice, which is why he hated the film The Matrix, even though they made it as the Wachowski brothers made it as a tribute to him. He hated it because they took his criticism and internalized it as part of the philosophy of The Matrix. The moment of consciousness in The Matrix is a choice between a red and a blue pill. Baudrillard was against that. He said we shouldn't be reducing everything to this false dichotomy. That's culture. That's brainwashed consumer capitalist culture that's doing that. And it restricts our mode of thinking. I think the major poison of the age is tribalism, is moving into teams. Red team, blue team, men, women, black, white. It's division, 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 division. And what we really need is unity and understanding. So men and women have been forced into this trap over time. That's the nature of the ideological infection. That's the nature of where culture has moved. Some of it is a deliberate conspiracy between people who want to make money. They want to break up the nuclear family. They want to break down personal boundaries, national boundaries. They want to make people feel like they're part of They're just slaves with no choice inside of an amorphous collective based on their identity, which is why identity politics is on the rise. But it's also us. I think it's also part of our unconscious. This is the way we go over time with stability. We'll tilt towards division because we're not naturally evolved for this much stability. So I think that we're tilting that. So you have a little bit of a conspiracy. Instead of resisting the conspiracy, we all lean into it and go, oh, that seems smashing. Let's do that. That's a fucking great idea. Where this has led us to is a difficult thing for men and women. And I imagine it would be difficult for people who identify as gay and bisexual as well, because it makes us combative. Now, what does it take for monogamy to work? One of the words I wrote down was liking. I don't believe that men and women like each other now in our culture. I don't think it's normal for men and women to like each other. Some still do, but it's not normal. It's not the thick end of the wedge. When I say normal, I'm talking statistically. So that's the norm, or you could say it's the median. It's the mean, statistically speaking. Most people, they will say that they do, but they're actually very contemptuous of the opposite sex. So it's quite common for men steeped in ideological infection to talk about women in a way that is contemptuous and as though they're talking about a dangerous entity. It's quite common for women to talk about men with disdain and contempt and as though they're talking about a dangerous entity. Why? Why? Because in this culture, they are dangerous entities. If you're a woman and you're heterosexual and you're trying to date men, I don't know if there's going to be any other person in your life who can cause you as much pain and upset, breakdowns, inability to function as a man. If you're a man, narcissistic abuse between family members exists. Narcissistic abuse in workplaces exists. Institutional narcissistic abuse, so on and so forth. Yes, absolutely. But for most men, where's the pain going to come in their life? It's going to come from a woman. Why? Because we've developed this combative stance, because we're now in teams, because we're running from belief systems that we're blind to. The thing with ideology is we don't know we're swimming in ideology. It's invisible. We're just like, this is the way it is. This is the way it's always been. And it just slots right into the unconscious. The goldfish isn't swimming in a bowl going, this is water. I'm in water right now. This is a bowl. I'm in, some dude's living room, right? He has no fucking idea. He's just swimming in the water and has no idea the impact it has on him. This is why ideology is sneaky. It's a very, very sneaky and dangerous thing that we have to deal with. So I believe we've been pushed deliberately and ended up in a situation where we don't like each other. Men don't like women and women don't like men. Boys don't like girls, girls don't like boys. With a few exceptions. Now, I'm not talking about becoming obsessed, feeling lust. Oh, there's no problem there. People are still getting obsessed with each other. They're still feeling lust for one another. So what you may do is get obsessed. What you may do is feel lust. What you may do is fall in love. What you may not do is like. It's not a thing. And so you end up with a situation where men don't like the thing that women are. Women don't like the thing that men are. And that is a nightmare for monogamy. Because we're living in fast twitch culture, consumer capitalist culture, it's about the momentary experience. It's only about now. You eat the McDonald's and then you throw the wrapper on the floor and that's fucking done. We got your little $6 meal. We got your $6. Now fuck off, slave. How's that going to work with monogamy? What in our culture trains us for the discipline? I'm going to use words here that are not popular now. Reverence, respect, admiration, and love. A love that moves beyond an adolescent obsession and connection that's rooted in lust. Do we need these things? If you think you're going to live with another human being for the rest of your life, how old are you? What are we talking about? 15, 20, 30, 40, 60 years? How long are we talking about? Why can't we have this conversation without people flinching? Are you seriously talking about living with another human being for 40 years and you're just going to walk blind into that and think it's going to go okay? It isn't. It isn't. They don't need to be abusive. They don't need to have a personality disorder or childhood trauma. That's hard. That's a hard thing, because as you live with each other, your masks of civilization will disappear, as they should, as is normal, as is completely natural. And then what's beyond the masks of civilization? Well, that's all the ego and that which is conscious and that which is controlled. Then what's after that? The unconscious. Then your unconscious is with another person's unconscious. And we are just not set up for that. We don't have any means for processing that. We don't have the internal boundaries for it right now. Because what trains you to have internal boundaries? I talk to people about developing a moral philosophy and they look at me like I've developed a second fucking head. They're like, wow, he's gone weird. I used to like this guy, but now he's talking about moral philosophies. And I'm like, if we don't know the difference between good and bad, and we never develop an idea of what a value system is, how the fuck are we supposed to live? When I was with my ex, I had a real problem, which is there was never a moment in the timeline of being with her when I said, today is the day that this abuse has gone on too long. Or today is the day where she did a thing, which is where I just say no. Do you want to know what that is? That's a lack of a moral philosophy. That's a lack of an internal boundary. Do you want to know what I was thinking about? Oh, I hope this works. I really love her. Oh, she's gorgeous, beautiful girl. I hope this works. I have to stay with her. My family like her. Oh, if I split up with her, my mum will be upset. I was 38 years old. I was a fully grown adult male when I was having these thoughts. I couldn't escape. Because all I was focused on was, what am I getting from this? What does it do to my status? What's the sex like, and what's the sex like, and how do I feel as a teddy bear, as being with somebody, because I didn't have the wherewithal to truly be on my own. So where's the affection coming from? And then what does everybody else want from me? And also, what does she want from me? You don't have internal boundaries. You don't have internal values. It's not going to work out too well for you. It can't do. So two fully formed, fully fledged human beings, and you don't need to be a pair of fucking weirdos who are into like self-development and you never talk about anything other than like your last Zen meditation retreat, because you become unfucking bearable. But if you look at it this way, you have two people with no internal boundaries coming together, and you just get a big fucking mess. Because I don't know what's you and I don't know what's me, because I have no internal boundaries. So that can't work. When you have internal boundaries and you know who you are as a fully individuated person, you can treat that person, you can like them. We need like more than we need love. We really do. Love is important. Love is essential. Love is beautiful. Love is fantastic. It feels great to be in love with somebody. But if you're in love with somebody and you don't like the thing that they are, the human entity, the animal that they are, you're going to have problems. If you don't have reverence for that person as a human being, as a human, so it doesn't matter how much they fuck up, they become, through, I don't know, some unresolved trauma, they become an alcoholic, they do something terrible, they, whatever, you know, let your imagination go there. You still have reverence for the fact that that's a human being. That doesn't mean you stay with them. That doesn't mean you put up with whatever they're doing. You still set boundaries with them, but there's a lack of reverence for each other. We don't respect ourselves, I claim, in this culture. We really struggle to find respect for ourselves, and you can't really respect somebody else if you don't respect yourself. Where there's no reverence, there's no respect, there's no admiration for each other, we're processing a very powerful, very adult thing. I mean, it's going to be one of the most powerful, internally powerful experiences you ever go through in your life. It's going to, most of you watching this have already done it. You know how powerful it is, and you know that it can become addictive in and of itself. Love can become the drug itself. So then you don't even really love the person. You love the fact that you're in love with the person. And then when that individual goes, you swap them out. You just get somebody else in and just carry on the cycle. So we need internal boundaries. You've got to have reverence for the person. Really, it's not like you revere them and you're fucking worshipping them, because you have to tell them, no, it's still just a human being. You're just a human being. But you have a sense that this is a living entity. This is a living, breathing human being. This is not just my girlfriend. This is not just my wife. This is not just my boyfriend. This is not just my husband. These are possessive terms. They lived before you. If you die or you leave them, they'll live after you. You didn't breathe life into them. You're not God. You don't own them, and you didn't create them. So you actually don't have the right to treat people with your partners. I see this all the time. People treat their partners with over familiarity. And you can say, how can we not be familiar? We live together. We have sex with each other. What's more intimate than that? And I would say, yeah, agreed, but maintain distance. Maintain a bit of respect. Maintain, just because you made, and we're getting now into the area of sexuality. When you make somebody come and you do it multiple times and you get really good at it, it starts to change, and you make them excited, and you have that power over them, and you know that they love you. If you've not resolved the darkness in you and the little pitfalls of narcissism and psychopathy in your unconscious, which you have, none of you are perfect. Don't fall into this absurdly egotistical trap of thinking like, oh, it's all about my ex-boyfriend, it's all about my ex-girlfriend. None of us are perfect. Those traits lie dormant, dormant, semi-dormant, and sometimes fully awake in every human heart. And you have to watch for it. What I've seen is that as people become more sexually intimate over time, they lose respect for each other. They lose that respect. They lose that reverence. And it's not going to come naturally. Of course, if you make somebody come, of course, if you're having intense sex, of course, if you have that control over them sexually and emotionally, your view of them is going to change. But you have to have the discipline to hold the line and maintain respect, admiration, and reverence. And remember, you didn't make them. They're not yours. They're not yours. You're just together for now. And that for now may be 40, 60 years. I don't know. But if you don't have that reverence and you don't have that respect and admiration and likingness, how can you be grateful for them? Do you think you're going to live with somebody for 40 years and not be grateful for them? Are you out of your fucking mind? You have to be looking at that person and be saying, I am lucky to be with them. I'm grateful for the time I get to spend with this person because I admire them. I respect them. I like them. Beyond sex and love, why do we lean so hard into sex and love and away from respect, admiration, and everything else? Again, I blame consumer capitalism. It infantilizes us. Our lives are too easy apart from anything else. We have too many choices. We're spoiled. We're like the spoiled brats of human history at this point. And so you're like, oh, I don't want to do internal boundaries. I don't want to work on my trauma. I don't want to pretend I'm perfect and just consume the other human being in the experience. And if they're not giving me exactly what I want, I'm just going to kick them out. I'm just going to get rid of them, and I'm just going to get another one. And maybe that one will be better. Okay, good luck. Okay, good luck. I don't want to develop a moral philosophy. I don't want to develop a value system. I don't want to hold another person with respect and reverence. That's not cool. That's not sexy. I can't fucking post about that on Instagram. Okay, good luck. Okay, good luck. I mean, I don't do coaching for divorces. What I do have to do a lot of is trying to offer people guidance when they've had children with somebody that they shouldn't have had children with. And then I'm constantly being asked, how do I do joint custody with a narcissist? And I'm like, well, I really, really wish I could have had a conversation with you 5, 6 years ago before you made the decision to get with this person and have kids. You know, you're now in a situation where you're going to be bonded to that other human being 25, 30 years, really. Because you'd be like, oh, the kids have left the house, I never have to see them again. Okay, it gets easier. You don't have to see them as much. But you can't say that they're out of your lives. You can't. I'm not being judgmental, by the way. I'm saying be careful. Be careful. With this leaning into what's cool, what's pleasurable, yeah, it feels good. And I'm not a nerd. You know, you might see me as like a party pooper, or like I'm the guy who's saying don't rush in, take it easy. You're going to have to be careful. You need to build a foundation. Fuck that. I want orgasms. I want cuddles and orgasms. Yeah, I feel you. So do I. Because they're immediately gratifying. They immediately feel good. Great. Cuddles and orgasms. Fantastic. You lucky thing. Just gorge yourself on the pleasure of that. And then let me know what it's like in 15 years when he doesn't look at you like he used to. Or she's not looking at you the way she used to. She seems pissed off with you all the fucking time, no matter what you do. She seems like she holds you in contempt all the fucking time, no matter what you do. You're pretty sure he's looking at other options. You're pretty sure he's found other options. Yeah? Is that what you want? Because it sucks. It sucks. When people are married, or even if they're not married, they just have kids and they're 10, 15 years in. There'll be people in the comments here, they'll tell you, it's shit. It's shit. And I'm like, at that stage, all I offer you is coping. All I can offer you is a coping strategy. This is something you don't want to get wrong. You get it right, your life is going to be awesome. You get it wrong, your life can really be a living hell. It can be very, very unpleasant. And nobody's talking about that. Or very few people seem to say it. So I'm going to say it. People will kick off with me and be like, oh, you're shaming people. No, I'm not shaming anybody. We've all fucking made mistakes. But who's going to say it's not better to avoid the mistake? Like, what my point is, prevention is better than cure. So you tell me in the fucking comments how prevention isn't better than cure. By the way, there's no cure for that, but time. And it's a quarter of a century. That's the cure. You wait a quarter of a century. Then you don't have to talk to that person anymore. So if we lean into the pleasure and we lean into the fast gratification and we lean away from the discipline of, I really, really strongly believe that you should keep some distance from your partner always. And the distance is, this living, breathing human entity is beyond me. I'm not merged with them. I don't own this person. This person doesn't own me. We never get that close. We never get close enough to merge. We're still separate. She's still a separate entity. She has fears, she has goals, she has drives, she has dreams she'll never tell me about. And that's fine, because I shouldn't seek to fully merge into her and she shouldn't be seeking to fully merge into me. You maintain a little bit of distance, a bit of discipline, a bit of respect, a bit of admiration, and, just delay the gratification a little bit. You'll still have the pleasure of cuddles and orgasms. You're still going to have that. But if you can form a stronger structure around that interaction, then you have something that's going to last. You have something that can really last. And by doing this, by the way, you have to step outside of mainstream culture. Mainstream culture doesn't allow for this. So mainstream culture is leaning that way. You're going to have to lean all the other way and be like, I'm not doing what... And it includes your friends and your family. Don't do relationships the way everybody else is doing it, because it's not working for them. It's not a pleasant, enjoyable, mutual growth project. That's another way to look at this, by the way, is it's an enterprise. It's a partnership. Take every once in a while, take the sex and romance off the table. Don't be goo goo gaga. It's not a fucking Disney movie. It's real life. So take it off the table and be like, this is a joint enterprise between the two of us. We damn sure better have goals. They don't need to be the same goals, but on the Venn diagram, the big ones need to cross over. And we must always be making progress. She needs to be making progress. I need to be making progress, and the relationship needs to be making progress. Human beings don't survive without progress. You've got to be moving forward, moving forward, moving forward, moving forward. What's next? Where are we going? Are our values still in alignment? Are our objectives still in alignment? Are we being honest? Are we being authentic? Okay, move forward. Sexuality in this context, short fuse, short-term dating strategies will be a goddamn nightmare if you use a short-term dating strategy for somebody that you want to be in a long-term relationship with. This is between you and you. This is between you and your hormones, you and your heart, and you and your genitals. I'm not a priest. I'm not like a teacher of morality. I would just say, be honest about what you want sexually. Be very honest about what you want sexually. And you're going to have to find a way to convey that to your partner. And you're going to have to find a way to convey that to your partner in the early stages of the relationship, such that if you two cannot find some sort of a compromise where you are being completely sexually fulfilled, you don't proceed. Don't do it. Don't do it. I don't think it's a good idea to put your sexual desires and your sexual identity to one side for the sake of a relationship. And you might say, but you just said lean away from cuddles and sexuality, go into discipline. Okay, I did say that, but I'm talking about short-term pleasure. Don't lean into short-term pleasure and gratification. Build something that's going to last through mutual respect and admiration. Can you put short-term pleasure to one side? Yes. Can you afford? Absolutely, anybody can. And if you can't, well, grow up. Can you afford to put your sexual identity to one side? No. You might get away with it for a few years, but you're not being fair to your partner, and you damn sure are not being fair to yourself. This is where we need to understand. We sort of act like certain things only go one way. You speak to people about something like compassion, and they'll talk about it as though compassion is something you offer others. If compassion is only something you offer others, you know what that is? Codependence. It's bullshit. It's not compassion. That's not compassion. When you offer somebody else compassion, you must be offering yourself just as much compassion with just as much balance and disciplined focus and like a meditative level of awareness, so that you don't encroach their boundaries or yours. Overgiving is poison. Overgiving is trauma to that person's boundaries. They'll love the experience, but again, we're onto short-term pleasure. Compassion must flow both ways. I maintain your respect and I maintain my respect. Respect for you, respect for me. So full-scale sexuality means that you can't erode or erase or alter their sexual identity. So you want to know what their sexual identity is. This will take longer to get to with some people than it will with others. Men and women need to learn to do this without judgment or condemnation. Because as soon as you judge or condemn or mock a person in the most vulnerable parts of themselves, which is love and sexuality, they'll close up shop, and that's your fault. That's 1000% your fault for mocking them or for having some sort of triggered emotional flashback to something that they're into sexually. If you're not adult enough to deal with other people's sexuality, all that means is you haven't dealt with your own. This is all about projection. Now we're into massively German, massively psychoanalytic, Freudian, Jungian, Adlerian stuff. So if you're in denial of your sexuality, you will get upset, defensive, frightened, and then aggressive in the face of somebody else's sexuality. So your sexual identity is something that you should explore to the fullest with total honesty and authenticity. I joke about fetishes and stuff all the time because I think it's funny. I probably shouldn't really do it because I am very, very keen that men and women have a fully developed sexual identity. The best chance for a monogamous relationship that's going to work for a long time, free from the poison of resentment, is one in which both partners have a fully expressed sexual identity that's acknowledged. I'm not sure, because I've never done it. I don't know whether it's necessary to a nicety or to a nuance to live exactly inside of each other's fantasies. But if somebody who you love I've thought about this. I've thought about this long and hard. Oh, I did it again. If I really loved somebody and I respected them and I had admiration for them and they were just a person who I would want to hang out with even if we weren't together because they're a good person and there's real love and respect there, and I held them in that space, I was like, what sexual fetish that a person could have would you not indulge? And I was like, I've never been in the situation where somebody's asked me to do something and I've gone, fucking hell, love, I'm not into that. That's never actually happened. But what would I do? And I have to say, and I'm speaking now theoretically, so maybe, you know, sometimes you say something in theory and then it happens and you're like, I'm not sure about this. It probably should be nothing. It probably should be nothing, because I'm thinking it's only sex. It's only sex. It's only sexuality. We can't afford, if we really want to do long-term monogamy with somebody, to be panicky, judgy, aggressive, and snippy about what somebody else wants sexually. It's only sex. It's not, if you want to treat sex as a power game, if you want to treat sex as, some people do this, and it's such an error, a reward or punishment system, good luck. I can't help you. I can't help you. You won't be in a long-term monogamous relationship. If you do, it's because you've managed to lock the person in and they'll be miserable and they'll be dying. They'll just be slowly dying inside because you've managed to successfully lock them in. It shouldn't be done as a power game. It shouldn't be done as a punishment and reward system. All of this is not adult. Let's use transactional analysis. Adult interactions, that's parent-child. And it's bullying. It's a kind of bullying. It's not, you're poisoning the well. So the other person's sexuality, obviously you have your boundaries, but that's why I say you need to establish this early on in the relationship. You might not be sexually compatible, and you're just going to have to grow the fuck up and deal with that. And you're just going to have to be honest and say, look, we're not sexually compatible. And if the two of you come together and go, we're not sexually compatible, but everything else is great, have the conversation and be honest and say, okay, can I live with somebody and just commit to one person where I'm not going to be fully fulfilled sexually? Who am I to tell you that you can't do that? Nobody. But you got to do it. You got to have the conversation and you got to tell the truth. So you'd be like, oh, I really love you. You really love me. We're not sexually compatible. Let's do as much as we can here, but there's certain places I just can't go with you. I'm not recommending this. I'm putting it forward philosophically as a potentiality. You just say, well, maybe you're not that fussed. I live without that. There's a thing I want to do. I can fucking live without that. And then you move forward like that. But be honest. Tell the truth. Every time you choose to tell a little lie, be evasive, cover up, it's something that will. So let's use a golf drive analogy. I fucking hate golf, but I can't think of a better one. Well, I'd end up with like sniper analogies and it would sound aggressive, but it's the same thing. Same thing. So when you drive, apparently, a golf ball, when you make a tiny little mistake here, it's a big mistake down there. Similarly with sniping, for obvious reasons. The further away it is, like snipers, they even have to account for the spin of the earth if the shot is long enough, because tiny fractional movements mean the bullet's not going to go there, it's going to go there when you're like 1.5 kilometers away or something. So similarly with this, you're like, oh, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that. I'm not going to tell him about that. I'm not going to tell her about. It's no big deal for the first 3 months. Might not be a big deal for the first 3 years. But are we talking about long-term monogamy that goes on 30, 40 years? Those little things grow into big things over time. So as far as sexuality goes, I'm going to move from the personal to the cultural. We need to start being honest. Though we have more access to pornography and like erotic material, and we have the semblance of being open about sexuality, we're at the most amount of access to material for sex than in recorded human history. There's no other time in recorded human history where there was this much stuff, material. I would claim we're probably in a phase where we're actually very sexually repressed, which is enormously confusing. So everything is sexualized. You can't even watch an ice cream ad without the girl eating the ice cream like she's fucking trying to do a sloppy deep throat. And I'm like, just sell me a Magnum. Magnums are delicious ice creams. I don't need you to do the whole fucking blowjob thing. Like, just, you know, or cars or beer or even fucking McDonald's. Everything has got sex boiled into it. And then there's a lot of sexual material there. But because of where everything else has gone, it's actually hard for people to connect sexually. Now, I'm on the other side of the desk here. I'm hearing people's stories. They come to me and they say they're the victims of narcissistic abuse sometimes. And I'm like, this really isn't narcissistic abuse. But as far as sexuality, some things are just issues of culture in general, and we're not seeing the human. We're not being humans, and we're not seeing humans. We've lost that skill. There seems to be quite a lot of sexual autism out there, a sort of inability to connect with another human being first. So with sexuality, let me give you something prescriptive and then we'll wrap this up. You want to be able to map your own sexual identity. Most people watching this won't have done it. It's not something that culture encourages us to do. It's only something that I myself have made a deliberate effort. I did deliberately try and do it in my teens, and then stuff happened. And then recently I was like, well, it's actually, it doesn't matter why. Like, it's whatever. So I was like, this actually seems to be quite important. It's because of the codependency thing. I'm kind of thinking you should know what you want fully to overcome codependency. And I was like, is this an area of my life? And I'm like, yeah, I'm super open. I'm super liberal. I'm da da da. And then I was like, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure you really mapped that properly. So you've got to map your own. And then when somebody else is telling you, showing you and telling you where they're coming from, it's like therapy. Folks, you can't afford to flinch. Don't flinch. Don't flinch. Don't judge. If you find yourself panicking in the face of somebody's kink or fetish, it's probably because you have not really mapped your own sexual identity with honesty. And the other option, or a combined factor, is you're placing sex too high. It's a big deal. But please remember, it's only sex. It's only sexuality. So, and these things shift, they change. Take it seriously, but don't take it as like gospel. It's not the be all and end all that your boyfriend is particularly into this. It's not the be all and end all. Like, I've been with girls who've been into stuff that maybe wasn't necessarily what I was particularly into, but I knew enough at the time to not be judgmental about it. Because I'm like, if I judge this, she's not going to tell me. Like, and we have to figure this out. We have to integrate it into where we're up to. Otherwise, she's not going to be fully fulfilled. But that means okay, so what that says is a good thing. That shows that even though these were not good relationships, I cared enough to have the conscious thought with both of these girls. Like, okay, all right, that's not me, but with both, I cared. I cared enough to think about it. And I think for a lot of these issues that we act like are so complicated and so insurmountable, it really is just a case of bringing like a little bit of conscious awareness and a little bit of common sense and a little bit of a humble desire to make things function. And don't be a selfish asshole. It's not all about you all the time. Sometimes it really is about the other person. And if you have two people who have their own internal boundaries and they can see the other human being with compassion, which flows both ways, compassion for me, compassion for you, and just go, okay, human, all right, human, that's where you're up to. This is where you're up to. Can we come together in a way that is stable? I won't do it today, but maybe another day. What I would claim is, see these, like, I've given some prescriptive things here. If we conquered that, even like 70 to 80%, with breakups, like for a start, if you were doing this, you wouldn't fall prey to narcissistic abuse. You wouldn't fall prey to narcissistic abuse. Narcissistic abusers, narcissist psychopaths, dark triad types, they know that this is what you want. So men and women, narcissistic men, narcissistic women, they fucking know very well. They map you and they know what you want, and they offer the semblance of this. They offer the illusion of this. and they draw you in. But if you've really gone deep on this and applied some time, attention, love, respect, conscious awareness to these issues, you'll know straight away that it's fake. You'll know straight away that what they're offering is not the real thing. And if it comes time to break up, and if it comes time to end a relationship, it doesn't have to be a fucking dumpster fire. It doesn't have to be the worst thing in the world, because you can maintain the humanity of the other person. The times that we live in, we dehumanize other people very, very rapidly. We're very comfortable, very slick, very well rehearsed at just dehumanizing people and writing them off. What, can they do anything to come back to being human? No, we don't do that. They're just gone. Why? Because it's a narcissistic style. You know, you leave people dead in the road. What is it called in the narcissistic mumbo jumbo? Discard. Now we're all discarders. We're all learning to be discarders. That person said a tweet, I don't like, discard. Can they ever come back? Oh, fuck that. Fuck that. Banish them. How long for? No, they're banished. That's it. It's done. There's no comeback. There's no road. There's no road to perdition. There's no purgatorial moment. And then you offer them the conditions, and you're like, if you fulfill these 5 conditions, then you come back and we never mention this again. No, they're gone. They're branded for life and they're sent to the outer. I don't want to sound preachy, but I have been saying this for years. We're moving in these directions, and it's really, really, really not good. It's very, very dangerous. Branding people and discarding people has no future. It's like this thing with the relationships, monogamous relationships. There's no future in it. There's no long-term future in it, because it has to. So there's a crossover here. The way we're doing relationships, because we're raised in narcissistic cultures, is we're doing them narcissistically. And you might be like, oh, not me, Richard Grannon. I am a perfect, pure being and I poop pearls. Well, no, actually you fucking don't. Actually, that's not true. You do have an unconscious. You do have aggression. You do have latent hostility. You do have unresolved childhood trauma. You do have areas of your sexual map that you're repressing. You do have issues with your mother or father, attachment traumas that then come up and that you then take out on your partner, because at a certain point in the relationship, you feel you have the fucking right to, and you don't. And what I'm trying to do in this video is say, maintain the discipline. Don't do what everybody else is doing. Remember, you don't have the right to treat another human being like that. Doesn't matter whether they're your partner, your child, your whoever. You don't. None of us do. If we can't come back to respect, admiration, and reverence, if we're not yet at a point in our biological and spiritual evolution where we can reclaim that, it's a discipline, by the way. We're not evolved enough for this to be natural. It's a discipline. It's a almost but not quite a religious discipline. Almost but not quite a spiritual discipline. Hold the person in high regard. Hold people, hold life in high regard. Be humble. Be grateful. Don't be a grabby, spoiled little brat. Because if you have 2 grabby, spoiled little brats together, of course the marriage rate is 50%. Of course it is. I mean, I don't believe that it is. I don't believe the marriage rate, the divorce rate. I don't believe it. If people could get divorced without losing access to their kids, losing a load of money, going through drama and all the rest of it, I am being totally honest with you. I think the divorce rate would actually be closer to 95%. We're not equipped for it. And it's not your fault, her fault, his fault. It's where we're up to culturally. We're not equipped for this thing. It's a big, shiny, bright, promised land. It can be an incredibly intense, wonderful experience, and we just want to rush on the ride. Just never mind all this stuff about respect. Just let me get on the fucking ride. All right, you're not ready. You're not initiated. You're not initiated. You're trying to skip ahead, and you're not ready for that, because it's powerful. It's fucking reality warping, and its power to uplift you is exactly commensurate to its power to crush you down into the fucking earth. So respect that power and treat it with a degree of reverence. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that was useful. Thank you very much for your time and your attention, because I have respect and reverence for you and these wonderful currencies of time and attention that you offer me. And I look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Cheers.